No, there's a reason why Pax Americana replaced Pax Britannica. And now we say Pax Judaica, meaning a Jewish world order, Israel ruling the world. Pax Judaica wants to replace Pax Americana. In order for Pax Judaica to replace Pax Americana, what we have to do is look to see what happened the first time. In order for Pax Americana to replace Pax Britannica, what happened? Study that. And when you study that, you'll realize that money is one of the keys to the transition. Money. And so the US dollar will have to collapse. The US dollar is not collapsing on its own through any economic reasons. It is a controlled demolition job by the Zionists. They know what they're doing. And they have the Federal Reserve in their control, not the American people. And so 15 years ago, Imran Hussein is not a prophet. Imran Hussein doesn't have an angel or a jinn whispering in his ears. How could Imran Hussein say 15 years ago that the US dollar must collapse? Which I did. It's there. It's documented. Nobody else said that. No monetary economist in the world said that. But I said it. Why? Because I had Nabi Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. We have him as our teacher. So my study of Islamic eschatology led me to the conclusion, studying Dajjal, led me to the conclusion that the US dollar is not only going to collapse, but must collapse in order for Israel to take over from the United States. That when the US dollar collapses, it's going to bring down all the paper money in the world, because they don't need paper money anymore. And then the electronic money will take over. So now we are witnessing this. This is the moment that I anticipated 15 years ago. The US dollar is already finished, it's just waiting now to collapse, to be finished, and to be demonetized. But not only must you have a fundamental change of power in money, but there was something else that happened between phase 1 and phase 2. And that is that the United States had to intervene to save Britain from defeat in the First World War. Britain was on the verge of defeat. The German submarines had marooned Britain. Britain probably had food for 2 weeks left. When the plan was worked out, they went to the British government and said, "You're losing the war, but we can help you to win it." And that's when the British issued the Balfour Declaration that it is the intention of the British government to work for the establishment of a Jewish national home in the Holy Land. In November 1917. That was a quid pro quo for them to bring the United States into the war. And once the United States entered the war, the First World War, Germany was defeated. Okay? And so, not only did the United States have to wage big wars, but also the United States had to intervene to save Britain from defeat. And so it was clear to the whole world, Britain is no longer the ruling state. The United States has taken over. We can therefore close our eyes and anticipate that Israel is going to wage big wars. But more than that, that the United States has to be set a trap for the United States, where the US is facing military defeat. And if Israel does not intervene, that's it for Uncle Sam. And then Israel will intervene like the United States intervened in the First World War. And then it will be clear to the world who is now the ruling state in the world. The Arab uprisings are meant to prepare the way for all these things to happen. I mentioned the destruction of the Arabs, the hadith. The Arab uprisings are preparing the Arabs for the great slaughter. But it is part of the divine scheme that Allah chose them. Allah chose them that they would be the ones who would suffer, not the Malay. No, not the Malay. The Malay can eat his roti canai and go home and sleep. Oh yeah. The Arabs will weep. The Arabs will suffer. Terrible suffering. They've not suffered as yet as much as what's going to come. And that's part of the divine plan we have to say to the Arabs, that comfort their hearts. That you must be something special to Allah, that Allah should choose you. That you have to be sacrificed so that Allah's plan can take place. And eventually they'll be punished with the greatest punishment. What is that trap for the United States? To lead the United States to a situation where military defeat. It could be that, of course I can be wrong. Remember that, I can be wrong. It could be that Israel is going to attack Iran. And when Israel attacks Iran, of course Iran is going to retaliate. But Iran is given the green light, so to say, as Saddam Hussein was given the green light to take Kuwait. So Iran is given the green light to take Bahrain. And Iran occupies Bahrain, which is majority Shia. And the Shia population of Bahrain will welcome Iran. Why should they not? They're being oppressed. But once Iran occupies Bahrain, Iran is heading for Saudi Arabia. And the Saudis know how to drive BMWs. I don't think they know how to drive to fight Iran. Huh? So Saudi Arabia is going to call on the United States, its patron, to intervene. And if the United States makes that mistake to enter into Saudi Arabia to fight Iran, that could be the graveyard. That could be the place where the United States can be facing defeat. And if the United States is facing defeat in the desert, the only force in the world that can intervene to save them from defeat is Israel. Israel. This is a possible scenario, but do remember, I can be wrong. Next question.
Assalamualaikum, Brother Imran. Pardon me for asking this question. Can you explain in very simple terms the meaning of Ya'juj and Ma'juj, as if to a layman? Thank you very much.
Can you give me 1 hour? Ya'juj and Ma'juj, in English Gog and Magog, are explained in a hadith in Sahih Muslim, which is a hadith al-Qudsi, meaning the direct speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says about them, I have created creatures of mine so powerful that none but I can destroy them. These who have been ordained with this literally indestructible power are human beings, not some strange creatures living in the bowel of the earth. They're human beings. The Prophet said that they are from Banu Adam. They are Banu Adam. But the Quran tells us that they use their power to oppress. Whereas Zulqarnain uses his power to punish the oppressor. Surah al-Kahf. Gog and Magog commit fasad. Fasad is that which corrupts and destroys. The Quran gives us many different forms of fasad. For example, it speaks about the corruption of agriculture, food, as fasad. And that's what's happening today. Genetically modified food may provide nutrition, but would not function medicinally, because the genetic combination that Allah gave to it has been altered. So then where is the immune system going to get its nourishment from? Are we going to have to go to the pharmacy around the corner to get medicine for our immune system when Allah has provided it in food? So the tampering with the genetic composition of food destroys the capacity of food to function medicinally, which is fasad. And so as we eat this supermarket food, I'm not talking about compound food, supermarket food, you'll notice around the world the immune system growing weaker and weaker. And so the antibiotics prescribed by the doctors have to become stronger and stronger. This corruption and destruction of food is Gog and Magog. The people who met with Zulkarnain and complained to him about Gog and Magog when their wickedness, asked him, could he build a barrier to protect them? And he built it with blocks of iron, and then covered the blocks of iron with molten copper. We actually know where that barrier was built. My book on Gog and Magog outside gives you the analysis by which you can recognize the exact geographical location. So Gog and Magog are from behind that barrier. We also know when the barrier was brought down. I quoted the hadith, today a hole has been made in the wall. When Gog and Magog are released, then the world is going to witness an indestructible power taking control of the world. But it's going to be a wicked power. When we go to Suratul Anbiya of the Quran, we get a second reference to Gog and Magog. That Allah speaks of a town which He destroyed, and the people of the town were expelled from the town, and then a ban was placed upon them that they could never return to reclaim that town as their own. They can come back as tourists, but they cannot come back to reclaim the town as their own. Until when? Until two things happen. Number one, Gog and Magog are released. And number two, Gog and Magog spread out in all directions and therefore take control of the world. Power in the world is theirs. They are the world order. At that time, the people of the town will return to reclaim the town as their own. Which town is it? I gave the answer. It's Jerusalem. It's Jerusalem. And I gave the reasons why I came to that conclusion. That's my book outside Jerusalem in the Quran. And so when you see the Jews returning to the Holy Land, to Jerusalem, to reclaim it as their own, you know, Gog and Magog have brought them back. One more hadith and I'll end. Hadith is in Sahih Bukhari. لَيُحَجَّنَّ الْبَيْتِ وَلَيُؤْتَمَرَنَّ. People will continue to perform the Hajj and also the Umrah بَعْدَ خُرُوجِ يَأْجُوج وَمَأْجُوج, even after Gog and Magog have been released. the Hajj and the Umrah will still continue.